Well, growth hacking itself is a process, but the words growth hacking is a term that was coined by Sean Ellis in 2010. And it refers to somebody whose true goals are continuous growth. Their only direction is north, is the way that it was coined properly. Through any means necessary to grow the business, to grow the amount of traffic, to grow the user base. Growth is always going to be key there. That the hack itself traditionally was more along the lines of a technical exploitation of a loophole that might be found in software, just like we think of hackers. But a hack itself is any sort of creative thought, some sort of ingenuity, some ingenious way of being able to perform a certain tactic to achieve a certain result that you wouldn't normally have thought would work. So hence the hack. Now, the reason why I mentioned the fact that it's just a term that was coined since 2010, it was because we've actually been doing this type of business for years. I mean, I realized only within the last couple of years that I'm a growth hacker for the type of work that I was doing back in 2004, 2005. It's usually defined that someone is achieving true growth if they're growing at a regular rate of 10% month on month. The business that I was associated with grew 34% month on month, so it was prodigious leaps and bounds. We never thought about it as growth hacking, and as far as I was concerned, I was just doing digital marketing. I was just being very strategic at it, and I suppose that's the way to look at it. But growth hacking itself has been around since as long as business has been around. What you do is you perceive a need and you fulfill that need, and you do it in such a way as to get a huge amount of exposure and growth coming into it. The traits of a growth hacker are threefold, really. You have somebody who has an entrepreneurial spirit. They're innovative. They're creative. They think outside the box. They come up with the idea of what might be possible. A digital marketer themselves needs to be able to take that thought process and create some sort of strategy, some sort of way of seeing whether we can get enough people. Now, not just digital marketing, but any sort of marketing. Some way of being able to achieve what you want to be able to get from that original germ of an idea. And then the technical know-how to be able to implement it, to be able to either create a retro program, to be able to work backwards from the way that an existing program works. And what you do is you decompile the entire processes to figure out how it works so that you can find out how to insert data coming into it. The reason why it's a little bit hard to be able to justify here is that that's what Airbnb ended up doing. But that's beside the point. Those three key elements of that entrepreneur, that marketing expertise and that technical know-how is very rare to find in one individual. It's like there's no percentages to be able to say how many people are there, but most people who end up doing growth hacking don't realize they end up doing growth hacking, and it'll only be afterwards that they might be able to fit this term, which, to be perfectly fair, is a buzzword for something that's been going on for a long time. So how can people benefit from this? Well, people have benefited from that type of personality throughout the eons. Okay, we've always gravitated to these types of individuals. They're a lot of times they're also very eloquent and well-spoken. They tend to be dynamic personalities. They tend to generate lots of followers, and they tend to be leaders, and they tend to be entrepreneurs. All right. The converse to this is how do you get that type of feeling? How do you engender that into a business organization without fear of having someone leaving because they're an entrepreneurial spirit? A lot of people feel comfort in working for an organization that provides security for them. And a lot of people will do everything they can to be able to excel at the jobs that they do. Make the business better, make themselves better. It goes hand in hand. And any organization that has somebody who has the ability to be able to think outside that box, to be able to find different ways to generate revenue or services or customers is going to be nothing but an asset. And that type of personality needs to be fostered and promoted. what you have is that germ of an idea, the marketing know-how to be able to implement it, and the technical know-how to execute it. I've talked about several times about how rare an individual is, but you don't need to have an individual do it all. Okay, you can have a good leader come up with a great idea that gets implemented and executed by the team. All right, and that's, I think, more along the lines of what we try to foster in some of the other programs that we have and some of the other modules that we have in the program with that entrepreneurship. All right, so the merging of digital marketing and coding and technical know-how is a digital marketer would not come up with an idea that a growth hacker would. A digital marketer would know that if I wanted to be able to speak to a specific demographic at a specific time, then I would use this specific channel and I'd talk to them in a certain way. Okay, a growth hacker would find out, instead of going to the channel, they'd find out where they lived and be able to send tailored messages that spoke directly to a specific small subsection of that audience to be able to generate a specific reaction that would be fine-tuned to coming to a landing page and register for something. So it's not just I'm going to spend X amount and plan on getting this much of a conversion rate and plan on driving this much traffic and plan on getting this many conversions. It's I'm going to create an email campaign that's going to target my existing user base, but only the men that are aged 18 to 35 with an interest in archaeological supplies. I have a much smaller window. But when I send them to where this service, this offering that I'm doing, I'm going to have a much higher conversion rate at a much lower expense. So again, it's a way of thinking and it's a thought process, and it is merging that technical, that defined attitude towards data with most marketers just have the ways of implementing somebody else's ideas. People are creating roles now for growth hackers. And I think it's because a lot of people don't understand about what those growth hackers are. It's really important to understand that you probably can't just hire a growth hacker. You can hire a consultant who's good at growth hacking, but growth hacking is funnily enough, probably already in your organization. You just aren't looking in the right place or allowing the right sort of environment to allow that person to express themselves. Every single organization that has an employee who says, God, you know what, it would probably be better if we could do things this way. It would make our work lives a lot easier. That right there is the entrepreneurial, innovative spirit to be able to organize it. And if you have the ability to be able to implement that idea and then get everybody to use it, and you realize that you've streamlined a road activity so that it takes half the time it used to, man hours are affected, the bottom line's affected, all by one person saying, God, I think there might be a better way to do it. Right, so down and dirty, what a growth hacking process is, it starts with the germ of an idea. The idea might be to perform some sort of action. What you need to do is you need to figure out what that action is going to be and define it a lot better than just some action. It's not enough to just drive traffic to your website. You need to be able to figure out how are you going to drive the traffic? Well, you're going to go through social channels. It's not just social channels. It's going to be creating content that you're going to release through social channels through a specific demographic audience that is in this numbers, sufficient in this social channel to be able to generate the traffic I want to be able to get. And then what you need to do, once you've got that whole idea, your hack, is you need to be able to set in place a way of measuring to see whether or not you're going to get your key performance indicators to achieve your goals. And then you execute that experiment within a specific time frame. And then after that, you either do one of two things. You enhance it or drop it. Growth hacking, the 3 steps in any sort of growth hacking process or funnel is all about acquisition, activation, and retention. You need to be able to devise a way of getting people to your product, service, or offering. And then you have to figure out one way to turn that visitor into a user. And at the end of the day, get that user through a specific process so that they'll stay on longer and longer and affect the bottom dollar. The longer you have a user interacting with your service, the more value they add to your product or organization. So that's where you talk about a lifetime value, a customer lifetime value. So getting thousands and thousands and thousands of people to a site isn't enough. You need to be able to turn those thousands and thousands into a certain number of users and make sure that they stay through a process to add value to your bottom line.